Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR, brought to you by State Sharpening, Mower Sales, and Service. Big thanks to the good folks over at State Sharpening for joining us here every day on Browns 3D. Also willing to help us as we are putting out our daily mock drafts on the website. It's the time of the year, and we were really excited about this launch, certainly. And then, of course, things changed. The pin has been pulled on the Myles Garrett grenade. The clip is still held, but Myles Garrett has officially put out a statement that he is asking to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. As a kid, dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. And that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man that I am today. While I've loved calling this city my home, desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett. So how's all your guys' Mondays going? Depending on who you talk to, there are many folks who believe this was maybe a shock. There are some messages I've gotten today that the Cleveland Browns fully still expected this to happen. Now, we heard Andrew Berry talk last week at the Senior Bowl. And that's where if you don't know, the Cleveland to Canton line came from, which was certainly interesting because it kind of seems like that was a dig. That was a jab taken from Myles Garrett's camp towards Cleveland Browns general manager Andrew Berry. For Myles Garrett to be upset with this organization, 100% understood. There's no question about it. This team started peaking in 2018. Made a move for 2019 that certainly held the team back, I'd say, in 2019. That same move got hurt early in 2020, which led to a lovely magical run in the Cleveland Browns, going to the playoffs and winning a playoff game. 2021, we all know Baker severely injured. The team certainly underachieved, and that player that was brought in for 2019 certainly caused issues in 2021. Then we get to spring of 2022 and the absolute move that still, in my opinion, is going to go down as, if not the worst, one of the worst transactions in all of professional sports history. It basically chewed it away at another 3 years, even though 23, that player got injured. Other players stepped up. The Browns did go to the playoffs again in 2023. But a lot of time was wasted of players' primes. Certainly Myles Garrett, certainly Nick Chubb, certainly Denzel Ward, certainly Joel Bitonio, and a lot of others. So for this group, and certainly in this case, obviously, it is Myles Garrett standing alone out on the island saying, at 29 years old, I just don't think I can do this anymore. Whether or not this does happen and Myles Garrett is potentially moved on from this team, it's obviously too early to tell. The question is, and basically the story to be written would be, is what happened from the end of the season when Myles basically was giving us this initial talk. Never said trade. Never said trade at the time. Said he wanted answers. Said he wanted to know what the path to success was for the Cleveland Browns. There were meetings, so we were told. And whether it was truthful or not, we heard Andrew Berry say that he thought he had satisfied the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. Very well possibly could be named the two-time Defensive Player of the Year. Whether that was factual or not, we don't know. But there are some that are telling me the Cleveland Browns expected this shoe to drop. Why it was done in such a public way, a little different. Definitely a little different. I mean, Myles could have just, and his agent could have just basically said, yo, I think we want to go. Why it was put out in public like this, certainly, interesting. There's no question about that. This is not Myles Garrett asking for a new contract. The Cleveland Browns had every intention of giving Myles Garrett a contract extension and making him the highest paid player in all of the NFL, the defensive side of the ball in the NFL. Warranted, without question. So this being put out there doesn't seem like it's a struggle. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like it's, trying to, get your word out there in front of somebody else's. I mean, you have to take this all right now at face value. There are certainly a lot of things that would make this trade immensely difficult, all which we'll talk about here, as this episode continues. But it's to the point, and I don't know maybe if anything changed or just the fact that this was still, basically Myles being a boiling pot of water in his frustration with this team. And again, it's understandable. It's warranted. When you see the reaction on social media from almost the entire fan base, every one of them taking Myles Garrett's side. Why? Because they all feel the same way. And, there's some calling to fire people now and this, that, and the other thing. Look, I said it once and I'll say it again. If you felt heads deserved to roll over the Deshaun Watson trade, you're 100% correct. Again, if not the worst, one of the worst transactions in the history of professional sports. So did it deserve people to maybe lose their jobs over? Yes. It was not the decision they made. So here we are. I don't know how you start going to change things or move on from things now. Now that we are into the draft process, the All-Star games, have been played. Could there have been some feedback between the Browns and Myles Garrett saying, we don't think there is a legitimate franchise quarterback going to be available to us in this offseason, whether it's through free agency, whether it would be through trade, whether it would be through the draft. So which meant that, hey, this could be a 2-year process, which means we are talking about, Myles Garrett playing next season 29 to 30, then 30 to 31. Myles is not a dumb man. He's a very, very smart young man. He understands that there is going to be a point here soon where, he is not going to be the best defensive player in the NFL. And he's fair in understanding that maybe he doesn't want to spend another 2 years here in Cleveland for a team that thinks they maybe could make the playoffs if everything goes right. And again, it's understandable. It truly is. There's a lot to get to with this. And, whatever the topics were going to be for this week, obviously, this is probably the biggest and most central talking point right now in relation to the Cleveland Browns. Just want to appreciate, obviously, all of you who make, such an effort here putting the OBR where we're at. It's been a great, great ride having you guys all here with us. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed, of course, on Twitch. Make sure you're checking out all the written content over the website. And we're going to continue here on your latest Browns 3D. And of course, we are brought to you now by our new sponsor over here. And again, we are absolutely thrilled to have State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service. I'm excited to introduce everyone to State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights. If you are local to the Cleveland area, they are your one-stop shop for all things lawn equipment. Listen, you want to spend your Sundays watching the Cleveland Browns, not cutting your grass. Let the guys at State help you get your weekend back. They specialize in both residential and commercial equipment for Toro. The brand professionals have counted on for more than 100 years. Whether you are looking for a new, dependable, time cutter, zero turn, genuine Toro replacement parts, or expert service from experienced technicians who keep your mower in peak condition, State has got your back. Veteran owned. The Kane family are lifetime Clevelanders, lifetime Browns fans, and proud supporters of the OBR. Again, if you're local to Cleveland, State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights is your hometown team for all your lawn equipment needs. All their info is at statesharp.com. That is STATESHARP.com. Continuing here, your latest Locked On Browns, your latest Browns 3D, brought to you by the OBR. Of course, are thankful for our new sponsors, State Sharpening, statesharp.com. Go ahead and check it out. How do we get here? Obviously, it's been an ebb and flow career. Myles just coming in and being the star player. However, the team has not always been able to be a team on the level of its star player, number 95, Myles Garrett. Myles, and again, I cannot stress this enough about what type of gentleman, about what type of athlete, about what type of representative of the city of Cleveland Myles Garrett has been. Part owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Myles has embraced this place, and he's probably at his wit's end right now. And is there any way that this can stop? Is there any way that the Browns can change this? Because this can get really bad for Cleveland. Not just trading him, but the implications that it brings. The other thing is, there's kind of some dominoes here. Myles, certainly 29 years old. Joe Bitonio. Here's a guy yesterday at the Pro Bowl, right now taking the time to contemplate whether or not he wants to put together one more season in the NFL. Well, if Myles feels that the path is that the Browns won't be very competitive in 2025, certainly got to feel a guy like Joe Bitonio probably feels the same thing. And why would I put myself through an 11th season in the NFL? More wear and tear on my body, more time away from my family for a team that might not be successful. Nick Chubb is a free agent. Maybe Nick Chubb would rather go somewhere closer where he's from in the Southeast, or himself choose to go to play for a team that is more in line to contend. Trading Myles and where you would move him to and types of possible return. I've been saying, and this has really been in direct regards to Myles Garrett and the fact that Myles Garrett may want to leave Cleveland. In a scenario like this, with a player of the caliber of Myles Garrett, we're in an oddity right now. Every NFL team currently holds their first round pick in the 2025 NFL draft. That is not normal. So normally in a scenario like this, what would you do? You'd say, all right, well, what team's got 2 first round picks in this 2025 NFL draft? But there isn't one. When Myles basically talks about wanting to go to compete and play and most likely try and win a Super Bowl, he's probably not talking about the Tennessee Titans. So when you're looking at that draft order, you're probably looking at teams in the 20s to the 30s as opposed to teams with more lucrative picks in the top of the draft. Certainly where the Cleveland Browns, if they had to trade Myles Garrett, would want to be looking to the teams with the higher draft picks. I'm just going to use an example like the Buffalo Bills. You saw a team like the Buffalo Bills, and what was the biggest issue for that team this year? Pass rush and lack of it. The Von Miller thing, unfortunately, never truly worked out the way they wanted it to. Certainly, Von getting injured and the type of injury he had at the age of his career, certainly something that, thwarted what they thought was going to be a great plan for them. But trading Myles to the Buffalo Bills, just right off the bat, pick 30 in the 2025 class. A lot of great players can be had at, 30 in the 2025 class. Then you are most likely talking about getting a second first-round pick from any team you're going to trade Myles Garrett to. But the thing is the team that Myles Garrett gets traded to play with in 2025, most likely that team is going to be better in 2025 than they were in 2024, which means the first-round pick in 2026 would be even lower than the first-round pick that you got in 2025. There'd certainly be some, pocket change in on that deal. I think it's 2 first-round picks. That is where the conversations start. And I will say this, the Cleveland Browns are on record as saying they still have zero intention of trading Myles Garrett. But are we sure a contract extension is going to be just enough? Because I'm sure Myles and his camp knew they were getting a contract extension. But 2 first-round picks and change. I want a player. Is there any way, if the Cleveland Browns have to move Myles Garrett, that they can satisfy the quarterback position? I see a lot of people bringing up the Patriots, and okay, but they hold the 4th pick in this draft. They have a lot of cap space. But what in the world, when Myles Garrett says he's dreaming about competing in a Super Bowl his entire life, wanting to win a Super Bowl, what in the world puts him with the New England Patriots? Not sure what kind of relationship he had with Mike Vrabel. Maybe it was a good one, maybe not. But, to say that, Drake May's there, absolutely. I think Drake May's going to be a fantastic young quarterback. But does that tell me or say to me that I think the New England Patriots are all of a sudden going to be, major contenders? Probably not. I jokingly say, hey, if there was a deal with New England, could we kind of sneak Joe Milton in that deal just so we can see how it works out? I don't think this is the news any of us thought we were waking up here today. And just, I guess it was right around 11 a.m., the actual just bomb of it dropped. And you're in this crazy scenario. And maybe for some of us, we were naive. Maybe we, wanted to believe that this situation was hopefully going to be put to bed. And maybe it was just that Myles wanted to hear that the Browns were going to go after a new quarterback because the old quarterback obviously was not working anyway whatsoever. Along with that, a contract extension. But you can't blame a guy. And this is the toughest thing. I mean, we know about this, all of us. How many players over the years have you all been huge fans of? Or, oh, that guy deserves a ring, And the factuality is it's a cruel, cruel world, and you just don't know how it works out. There are professional athletes that most people probably have never heard of, probably have 3-4 championship rings in their lifetime. And you could bring it up in a bar trivia contest, and 50% of the bar would have no idea who the world guy is. But there certainly have been plenty of star athletes in due time who unfortunately just never, ever got the opportunity to either compete for or certainly possess a Super Bowl championship. And Myles Garrett is trying to do everything he can to put that final, only missing piece, basically, on his resume. Now, here's the part that nobody really wants to even talk about. And this is certainly the elephant in the room with all of this. The Cleveland Browns can't afford to trade Myles Garrett. You guys, OBR readers, certainly know all about Jack Duffin's work. And that's why he's such a tremendous asset over here at the OBR is he is the contract guy. And I'm sure you guys all know through Cleveland radio because he's become a guy that they all talk about when it comes to talking about contracts and the Cleveland Browns. One of Jack's confidants in the contract world is Jason at Over the Cap. And if you're not sure, it's at Jason_OTC. So if you want to throw him a follow, he's got some great insight on this. Just to run a quick scenario, and this is, of course, Jason through his social media account. The Browns would need to restructure Watson to the fullest. Sure, Deshaun Watson doesn't care about how he gets his money, and right now he'll probably do anything the Cleveland Browns ask him to do. And Denzel Ward to the fullest. And cut Jack Conklin. And that's just so they could financially trade Myles Garrett right now, the way his contract stands. Doing all of that, however, would leave them with likely between $2 million and $7 million in cap space, depending on where the final cap number for 2025, when it is released, is. That ain't no money. No money whatsoever. This would leave them in a Saints-like situation. Really, outside of those 3 moves, there is little they can do besides extending Newsome and then June 1sting some players so they can sign their rookies. So they'd have to do all those contracts, release Jack Conklin, boot Newsome and others on June 1st, just to financially trade Myles Garrett. Just to trade him. Again, from Jason, doing the math on this, the best option is probably extending Garrett and coming up with a dollar figure that all of a sudden his feelings about a Super Bowl don't matter anymore, and make him happy to be part of what we all feel is going to be some sort of rebuild next year. This is how dire the situation is. Essentially, the Browns can't even afford to trade him. They roll over all this cap, all this stuff, restructure this, that, the other thing. That is all done to bring more players in. They would have to spend and exasperate every last dollar they have just to afford to trade him. And with the team where most of you feel like it's going to be a rough 2025 season anyway, well, imagine what it would be like now. You're talking almost, a little bit better than expansion level team. So they can't even afford to trade him. They have no problem extending him. That was in the works. He now maybe put them in a position where it could basically just nuke this regime. Is it truly going to happen? Will the Browns move on from Myles Garrett? This could go on for a while. And again, using that Cleveland to Canton verbiage that came out of Andrew Berry's mouth makes you think that, this situation is not very good. And if it's this far down already, separated, living in different domiciles, how do you get that back to a happy home? You're really, really close to a divorce, very close to a divorce, it seems. And it would just basically shred this entire regime of the way the Cleveland Browns have been structured since Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski took over in 2020. Again, you cannot blame Myles Garrett here. He's done nothing but be the model citizen his entire career here. He's been an outstanding performer. Led this team to the playoffs twice. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year. Very possibly, we find out Thursday night he is a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. I am a draft guy. Talking draft, making draft pick, all of this. I don't want this. In no way whatsoever. I still remember doing a show with Pete Smith during the 2017 NFL Draft. And when the Browns drafted Myles Garrett, basically my consensus, Pete's consensus at the time was they didn't Browns this situation. They made the correct choice. And of course, that was a couple of regimes ago, of course. But now you are at a really difficult spot in a stalemate. And, I hear some people trying to say, trying to rank where Myles is as the organization's best player. It's not something we're going to do. But since the return, you've had 2 incredible talents. One of them stayed with his entire franchise for 10 years. Never saw a glimpse of anything special. The other saw a playoff win. But now Myles Garrett feels this team probably is as far away from success at any point in his career. And that's tough. And, for the fans, I feel it. I mean, we just saw something crazy like this happen in the NBA over the weekend with the Dallas Mavericks basically moving on from Luka Doncic and basically saying, would have been the franchise's greatest player. So probably had another decade of prime in him in the NBA. Of course, that time is not as long in the NFL, we understand. And now you're starting to see a similar situation right here now with the Cleveland Browns, where their top player, the most talented player, the best defensive player in the entire NFL, has basically drawn a line in the sand. The Browns front office, Browns ownership has some immense work to do here. You have some immense decisions to make. You have to try and mend this fence if it's even possible that it can be mended. Is he that far gone that there is no trying to make this work? Will a dollar amount change the way Myles Garrett feels? It's tough to say because those words and what Myles has accomplished to this point in his career, he's basically saying he's looking for the cherry on top. He's looking for maybe the one thing. And look, Myles is going to the Hall of Fame regardless. None of that matters. It's not like a ring is going to make the difference about whether or not Myles Garrett goes to the NFL Hall of Fame. Maybe it's more from a selfish standpoint of, and look, there are no guarantees. He could go to any team and something could happen. The quarterback could whatever. There's no guarantee that moving is going to get him any closer to that Super Bowl. Could this just be, basically an ultimatum of how the leadership is running this building? I mean, there's going to be so many things. We don't know the full story. And I'm sure in due time, in the weeks and months to come, we're going to find out drips and drips and more and more. And I have a feeling it's not going to have this Browns regime in front office look good. It's probably only going to make them look worse. I don't want to live a day where Myles Garrett is not a Cleveland Brown. My time starting Cleveland Browns coverage revolves around Myles Garrett being here. So basically, my time here covering the Cleveland Browns has been here since Myles Garrett started his career here. I could not envision a Cleveland Browns world without Myles Garrett. I'm not sure, A, if it's salvageable, or B, if Myles even wants it to be salvageable. He put this out there for a reason. And all 31 teams in the NFL absolutely have interest. There is not one team in the NFL right now that is not saying, well, if he's available, and what can I do? And again, the teams the Browns would love to tango with, the teams drafting in the top 10, are certainly not the teams that Myles Garrett wants them to be discussing his future with. Myles wants his future discussed. Another great example, the Washington Commanders. Have the money, have the quarterback, can punt on a couple of draft picks to bring him in. Certainly the Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs will always be mentioned. You guys know that. Eagles. Those are the teams that Myles Garrett wants the Cleveland Browns to be talking to. We knew it was going to be a long offseason with a lot to talk about. And imagine when we all said, wow, we're going to spend 3+ months trying to find the Cleveland Browns a quarterback. Well, we're going to spend 2+ months trying to find a way for the Cleveland Browns to hopefully not have to trade Myles Garrett. Things get ugly, and things get ugly quickly. And people always wonder, and there's always, well, I hate that things have to end. Well, or I hate that things have to end badly. Well, if things didn't end badly, most likely they wouldn't end. Let's pray that this situation does not have to come to an end. Because again, I do not want to live in a world where Myles Garrett is not a part of the Cleveland Browns organization. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here at Browns 3D. We appreciate you all so much. Make sure you're subscribing, of course, the YouTube, the OBR YouTube page, the OBR Twitch page. Make sure you're reading all the written content. All the guys are busy right now, pounding away on the keys. There'll be plenty of stuff coming, so be ready for it. We got our daily mock drafts going out every day. Certainly those are going to change in ebbs and flows, as the days and weeks go on here. So make sure you're checking all that out, of course, exclusively on the OBR. And we are proud to be brought to you by State Sharpening, Mower Sales and Service, our new sponsor. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.